Okay, let's continue. I hope that my voice will not fail because I had a slight cold at the end of last week, and you can hear a bit of cracking already there. But I will then continue with body language if necessary. Okay, let's now look a bit more on the channels and formats that you can use to communicate. And my main idea is there that we quite often tend to think about media when we talk about communication. And media indeed is an important place because it does reach a lot of people in the society. Although also, it's not the only one. And within media, there are also several options what to choose. So I know that for some people, the ideal would be if we get all the news in the main news program in TV. This is what everybody wants, to have the most coverage. And indeed, this is the most prestigious place usually, but it's also where you have the most competition to get into. All the events, all the news want to be in kind of this main program, and the journalists are making very tough selections of what to have every day. And sometimes maybe for some topics, it's not even the best place to be. You might be looking at more specific media, not general media, but more specific depending on your topic, perhaps, or depending on the kind of the target groups that you have defined. So, for example, I guess for you, art publications are one logical place to kind of consider approaching when you want your research to be discussed. But yeah, if you don't get into general news, you can see which newspapers or magazines have perhaps science or art pages and try to get there, or think about specialized science or art media. All these have different audiences, different size of audiences, and of course, let's say in an art magazine, you are able to talk about your topic in a kind of different way, maybe more in-depth, in a bit more academic way than in those general newspapers or TV shows. So it always kind of requires thinking of or mapping the landscape. What is out there? What are the potential places where I could be? And then maybe approaching or proposing yourself or your topic to that. Maybe sending a press release there or contacting the journalist directly to propose a story. And also in mass media, there are different genres that can be written. So there is this news. In science, there is very typical, a new article came out saying that this was discovered or this was proven or whatever, and giving some background, etc., etc. In art, the news are traditionally that an exhibition is going to be opened, or there's a new play, or a concert, or whatever. News tend to be short, concise, and then very kind of aimed at the broad audience. Aha. Sorry, the power went out. But in news, there are also different genres that you can adopt. So there are interviews. So which are more in-depth, they are more personal, and I know that probably in arts world they are more used to open the kind of the ideas between of behind exhibitions or topics or different things. But yeah, they are usually always also related to kind of specific events that are discussed or that are happening. Then there are expert commentaries in general news. So these are more common in places where you want to kind of join the discussion when there is kind of not something specific happening related to your work, but some general topic, and you will be able to kind of insert your input to the discussion. And in those cases, if no one contacts you, you can always write an opinion article to the media, kind of outlining your argument and kind of giving suggestions, etc. So opinion articles are kind of always more subjective. They need to be fact-based. You're making an argument, but you're kind of more free to develop an idea there than you are able to do that in a news. And sometimes there are also feature stories that kind of take a broader topic and discuss it in a more kind of artistic way. So if you're being approached by a journalist or are thinking of kind of approaching media yourself, these are the things that you need to consider. You know, what channel would I like to choose depending on the target group, and what kind of genre would you think is the most appropriate for this topic. But as I said, media is not the only channel. For you, this is also a very natural channel, all the kind of artistic outputs. But when I show this to natural sciences students, they think, wow, what is that? So for them, I'm also trying to argue that sometimes you can collaborate with artists to also communicate your research or kind of give your input to different projects with an artistic side, because it does help you to reach different audiences. It does help to open up the topic in a different perspective, and kind of the science and art collaboration is something that is kind of a hot topic, has been for the past maybe 20 years in the field of science communication. But at the same time, there's been, I don't know if you know some of these TV shows like Charité, the German one about the hospital. It's been running in Estonia. It was quite popular. Or even the Big Bang Theory. Or you can even consider kind of these TV series as a form of science communication, because when they have scientists as characters and kind of some topics circle around those ideas, this can be a kind of communicating science so that people even don't notice that they're being communicated science. In theater as well, I think there are options. I was involved briefly with a research project in our university that was looking at the wage gap between men and women. Estonia has one of the biggest wage gaps in Europe, and the research project was looking at what are the kind of the reasons, how you could kind of solve it, etc., etc. So kind of a typical sociological research project. But in communication, they really came up with a few ideas that were not as traditional. For example, they did a round of forum theater. I don't know if you know what it is. So forum theater, engaging the people, kind of putting them in the situation, and then playing, kind of solving some of the situations. So I found that kind of a refreshing way how to kind of bring this topic to the public. Or they commissioned a blues musical about the gender wage gap. And that was a nice touch. And I think we need to be a bit more open about these. And maybe you can collaborate with natural sciences as well to do something like that. Then all of those web channels in social media, I think this is quite popular. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. You probably all have some people that you follow in those channels. You see what they do there, how they do it, and why is social media so kind of intriguing or attractive is because it has the potential for this two-way dialogue. Whereas mass media and most of the artistic genres still tend to be quite kind of one-way communication, that someone is talking and there's someone who's receiving and you don't get kind of the hear back, then in social media, at least in theory, you should be able to create this kind of dialogue, of kind of real interaction between people, which does give some special value to both sides, so that researchers do get input from the society, how their work is being perceived, and the people are able to kind of ask questions, give their kind of perspective on things, and then create really this dialogue. And dialogue is something that from this kind of this democratic perspective of science communication is really desired. And in theory, social media should be able to provide this. In practice, I guess you have noticed it's quite often complicated to achieve that, but still it can be there. Museums and science centers have become really active players in the field of also science communication. So museums usually are not anymore those institutions where you just go around, watch something behind glass, and then come out again. But the exhibitions have become much more interactive, and they are organizing also different kinds of events. Again, trying to interact with people, create a more closer kind of relationship or interaction. So this, by the way, that's the Estonian Science Center in Tartu. Very popular. When it was opened 13 years ago, it instantly became a huge success. So it has some 200,000 visitors each year, and kind of sparked that all the other museums and science centers were also starting to build very interactive exhibitions. So yeah, collaborating with these institutions might also be a way to especially reach younger audiences. And then there's a lot of kind of public presentation formats as well. The FAME Lab or 3-minute lectures were already mentioned. This is kind of spreading format. Science festival, kind of street festivals, is something that's also been quite popular. Café Scientifique is a format where there are discussion events in cafeterias, so not lectures, but actually aiming to create a very informal atmosphere to talk about certain things. And so the classical format actually even says that you invite people in a cafe, you sit them together around tables, having a drink, people feeling good. And you will not have a lecture, but rather some expert saying a few words, maybe 5 minutes about the topic, and then it is all open for discussion, questions and answers, so that you don't have this this power relationship as we are having right now. I'm talking here, you are sitting there. I'm taking the role of the lecturer, giving you, the passive audience, the information. All of these studies about power structures do recommend to break it down for the benefit of discussion and for the benefit of this democratic approach to questions. You need to be as informal as possible. And then visits to schools and public lectures. I don't know how many opportunities you have for that. In Estonia, we used to have this night of researchers. There's a night of museums. A few events over the year where universities also organize some public events, invite schools, etc., etc. These are really good place to practice those interactions, so explaining to people what you are doing. And all of those formats you have noticed have moved from a broader audience towards smaller and smaller audiences, but increasing in the opportunities of engagement and direct contact. So, and we know that the more direct contact you have, the more effective communication can be. So, when you are having an event like this with a rather small audience, but the opportunities to discuss, to talk, this is usually much more impactful than maybe just watching a video lecture or reading about it in an article or watching a short TV clip. So the more direct connection you are able to create with the audience, the better it will be. And finally, some formats that again are discussed a lot in science communication and that hold, in theory, a lot of potential are those engagement formats. And as I have mentioned, sometimes, or even quite often, or even mainly, the aim of communication is not just to transfer information, but to build relationship, to build trust, to give people an understanding of science, of the topic, of how science works. And for these purposes, the formats such as dialogue events or citizen science activities have been considered the most appropriate. So is the term citizen science familiar to you? What is citizen science is basically engaging people in the research process. Making research activities where, for example, you allow people to, let's say, gather data, or in some instances even kind of work together with communities to propose research questions and together with them collect data, analyze it, and then work the results. So citizen science, it is kind of one of those buzzwords at the European level today. So they are organizing all different kinds of activities. So for example, in Estonia, there was a popular project where biologists asked people to investigate certain flowers. Those in springtime, those yellow small flowers, I don't know internationally, in the Primula family, there can be two different types of flowers of that family, or of that flower, and kind of depending on the genetics and the environment of that. So they ask people, if you're in your neighborhood, you see that flower, could you go there and document what type of flower does it have, inside, and gave instructions of how to look at it and how to report it. And this way they were able to collect data from all over the country, from kind of much larger database than it would have been possible for the researchers themselves to go out and look at that. And they are able to make kind of significant ecological conclusions based on the data that they gathered. Or also in Estonia, the National Archives uploaded, they digitized much of their archive, and they uploaded thousands of documents asking people, could you just look at it and it's just a kind of image file of the digital document, could you kind of write it down what you see there? For example, those people who participated in the kind of independence war, kind of having people to read those digital documents and write it down. Again, something that would be really, really difficult for a small research group to do, or have a computer to do, but a lot of people are able to do it. And I guess kind of all fields of science are now thinking, are there things in my field where I can also do something like that? And the idea is that when people participate in that process, they will also understand a bit better how science works. And as we discussed, when they understand better how science works, they are also better able to evaluate all different claims that they encounter in their daily lives. So these are the different formats, and I do kind of want to emphasize that media is not everything that's possible to you, and you can choose those formats depending on the objective and the target groups, etc., just so that you have it mapped, all the opportunities out there. Any questions?
I would like to ask about mass media, popular media like YouTube use between top scientists, because what I recently noticed between field fairs, that just a few years ago, there were only average kind of areas that were using this mass media, educating and spreading content that was not the best, but just very recently, really top players started doing that and making their vlogs, and they used to be top of the field. And I wonder, is it the same with scientists? Some top scientists who have the best journals, best articles, and really good research done, are they also making this daily vlogs or their YouTube channels? And the main question is, I suppose in science that there is more information already, it's going for a longer period of time. Is there a danger to the quality of content that people start producing?
Yep, I haven't heard that much about YouTube and vlogs among scientists, but they are usually very active Twitter users, or kind of these, which also can operate within the academic community, but quite often also reach outside of it. And then blogging also has been quite common among researchers. And there are cases where it also has been quite impactful. You can see, for example, some research group comes out with a quite bold claim, and the next day there are already a lot of blogs by top scientists kind of criticizing or analyzing that claim, which it's like a peer review online taking place. And in theory, that should also increase the quality of science. So there are two things there. On one hand, yes, it helps to communicate better. And I guess all those top flute players are also doing that because they see that this is giving them some benefits. So making them more visible, maybe attracting more people to their concerts, maybe getting them better concert opportunities. So if they're really popular on YouTube, then I guess definitely more orchestras will want to invite them because they know it will also attract a certain group of audiences to their concerts. The second question, does it impact their quality? I think this is something that actually I did discuss in my PhD thesis. The question is, if you start to adjust your science or whatever to the requirements of the media, to be more visible, to be more popular, might it have negative impacts? And there are a number of researchers who say that the threat is there, but the conclusions are, it's not conclusive yet. I think it's always, the researchers say, I'm doing it because I want the world to be better, but I see the other person is doing that just for their own benefit, and it impacts their quality of the work in a negative way. But it's not affecting me in a negative way. And the other person might say exactly the same thing. So it's complicated in that sense. But so far, I don't think there has been any major setbacks to that. And I got the balance is quite fine. I think we all agree that the visibility actually can help. And the argument of certain scientists is that actually a better connection with the society through this visibility actually helps you to make better research, pose better research questions, and all of that. But I think there will be always those who suspect that there will be a loss of quality, and the others who say that actually it does improve the what we are doing. So the jury is still out there to decide where this is all going. So it's complicated, as usual with all the research. Anything else? Okay, then some of those writing tips that I have promised. Again, a few quotes to the beginning. An Estonian columnist, actually he's American, but he's created this persona, like a foreign-born Estonian, used to write columns for quite a while. One of his articles said that everyone who wishes their text to be read must start with either a shooting or a chase. Otherwise, people will just look at the photos, and even the author's mother will not read the text. Well, maybe that's a bit over the top, but not too much. Because the essence there is that we are living in the attention economy. So there are a lot of things that are competing for people's attention. And if they come to the theater, for example, they have made the decision, they will sit in the theater and you will have their attention. But if they're out there behind their computers or walking outside, there are a lot of things that are competing for their attention. And so what do you do to make them pay attention to you? What you are trying to say to them, your message, whether in media or in a street festival or whatever, you have to be able to get their attention and keep their attention. Shooting is a safe way to do that, but you cannot use it too much because everybody will get used to it. So the thing is, you have to find a way what attracts people. And we know that academic writing is definitely not the way to do it. So if reporters wrote stories in the way that some scientists seem to want, few people would read science coverage. And I guess this also applies to arts, because arts is also capable of using impenetrable language. So Calvin and Hobbes, I don't know if you can read it, came to the same conclusion: if you want to be successful in an academic world, write in a way that basically no one can understand, and they will think, yes, that might be, that's probably very wise, go ahead. But if I teach academic writing and popular writing, I always say clarity is actually the most important thing in any kind of writing to attract the audience. So the trick is how to be clear and understandable. And the first level there is the level of words, the words that we use. And by now, I think you are all kind of immersed in your own field. There are words that for you have become kind of normal. You know what they mean, but this can create this kind of false sense that everyone knows what those words mean. And that's usually not so. So whenever you start communicating, actually you would have to think word by word, do I really kind of assume that people will understand what this word means for them? And some of those words, mostly Latin-based, are those that people kind of don't know about. There are some words that in science mean a bit different thing than in a common world, common language. So you have to be aware of that as well, and really think about those words. This does not mean that you cannot use the words like discourse or post-colonialism or whatever like that. The thing is to make sure that people understand what they mean. So I was always very much impressed when I was reading the popular science magazine New Scientist, the British magazine, published, I don't know, 70 years already or 60, definitely aimed at people interested in science. But still, you could see that in their stories, they were always thinking about people who just may be picking up these magazines in a hairdressers or in a kind of airport in a random situation. And they wanted to make sure that even those people will understand the stories. So you could see that when they were using concepts like black hole or DNA or genome, they always kind of added a sentence or a half to explain what this thing is, even if you can assume that this is something that everyone who has been to high school knows about. Well, they might remember that something like that exists, but you cannot be sure that they remember what it actually means. So you take a bit of time, half a sentence to explain what it is, and then you're able to use it afterwards in a kind of more relaxed way. And what else tends to be quite characteristic to academic writing, or even kind of this bureaucratic writing sometimes, which creeps into the kind of texts, is the use of passive voice. Something was done by something, or the study demonstrated, or passive means that kind of there is no kind of person who does something. But the texts that are written in an active voice are actually much more dynamic, more easy to read, and more relatable for people. So please try to avoid passive voice and always kind of phrase the sentences in a way that there is someone who does something, not just things happen. And I think social sciences and humanities are better at that, also in academic texts, but kind of still kind of sometimes tends to creep in. And whenever you can kind of, instead of describing, show something visually, then take the opportunity. Think about how you can illustrate things quite well in advance, and use it as much as possible. Linking to that, I just recently, when I was writing up my thesis, I realized I have made most of the graphics myself using PowerPoint or something. So they looked okay, but they were dull. So I approached a graphic designer asking, could you take this graphic of mine and make it look nice? And she did. And I'm much more happy to use these kind of visuals in presentations and in the thesis, and probably in the upcoming press release or media coverage. Media likes visuals as well. So if you have great visuals, you do increase your opportunity to get into media as well. Helps always. But yeah, the general thing is to keep it simple. And as a response, I always get the kind of response from the researchers. If you explain things too simple, it's getting banalized or too trivial. You kind of lose the essence of the argument. If you explain it like to a 5-year-old, kind of, you are able to make very trivial sentences. But I always say it is possible to talk about very complicated things in simple words. Because you don't have to simplify the world when you use simple words. You are able to keep the nuances, but you just have to make sure that the words that you use are not too kind of complex. Because the main objective of this is to kind of tear down the barriers between communication. When people read or hear something, I mean, the more fluent it is for them, the more easier it is for them to stay with the idea and then follow it and then be there. But whenever kind of these barriers occur, something that kind of gives cognitive stress to them in a sense that they meet a word that they don't understand, or they meet a concept that is difficult for them to understand, then it is easier for them to kind of just stop listening or following at all. So kind of the aim of that is to kind of make the process as fluent as possible for them. Typical examples of academic writing. which, I mean, they serve a purpose in the academic context. Those words are useful in academic writing. Those constructions are useful because they are effective in conveying ideas and being kind of precise in their meanings. But to follow that, it does require specific training, which you are having right here at the academic world, at the PhD level. But having a normal person read this kind of text, they usually say, yes, I understood those of and the, but all the rest was a big haze for me. So, yes, this kind of approach does not work in communication. We have to quite from the beginning write it in different ways. So, from the level of words, to keep it simple, we then move to the level of concepts or ideas, and then again, the ideas that the academic world is exploring are quite often novel, innovative, different from the everyday thinking of people, which the academic world has to be. So then the purpose is to link those worlds together in a way that we can guide those people into this new world with them as well. And this is where the metaphor of theater is useful. My story here, where I felt the situation myself, was a lot of years ago. It was a summer afternoon. We were together at home thinking, maybe we could go out. Let's see what's happening out there today in the city. And oh, there's a theater festival, international theater festival. Why not? There's a play on, something from Poland. Okay. They say it has translation. Wonderful. So we went there, we sat down, the play started. It was a mono play on the topic of Friedrich Nietzsche, I think, in Polish. And after a few minutes, it was clear there is no translation. So I guess this is what it feels like to read an academic paper if you're not an academic person. You see that something is going on. You can understand, something. Okay, he's climbing in a box. Interesting. You have ideas what this might mean, but you're not quite sure. And in the end, you're not very satisfied with the experience. And probably if it wasn't the theater, we probably would have left. It was impolite to leave, so we sat there to the end. But yeah, it was not enjoyable. And compared to that, and if you go to a theater play in your native language, there can so many more ways which help you to understand what's going on the stage. So the language layer is the most important one, which helps to make meaning of all the other aspects that you see on the stage. So what helps people to understand beyond the words is if you use examples and metaphors for them. If you talk about an abstract idea, abstract concept, you can always say, you can see this, for example, in this situation, or the question is relevant in this situation. So bringing it on a very concrete level that people know about, that they can understand, that they can relate to. Or use metaphors that, okay, this idea, it's just as you in your daily life, if you do this or that, it's comparable. So kind of making those links to people's daily lives is something that can help people to understand what you are talking about. This is chemistry. A few years ago, the chemistry Nobel Prize was won by something like cryo-electron microscopy. And I just took a few headlines from that event to show how the journalists kind of operate on the level of examples and metaphors in such cases. And you see how much how in a different way they have tried to kind of approach this. So they call it like freeze framing life, or Google Earth for molecules, 3D views, cool method, capturing proteins in action, cool 3D pictures, cold, clear view of life. And then even if they mention cryo-electron microscopy, they kind of add immediately machines that can see the atoms of life. So again, there are different ways how to explain the same concept, as you see. But you see that kind of deeply ingrained in journalists to explain things, because they have immediately understood that something like cryo-electron microscopy is something that puts people off immediately. And by the way, on one hand, it's a very long word that takes up a lot of space in a newspaper. So they have all tried to kind of explain it in a different way, and in a way that would make people curious about this topic, and kind of also kind of convey the essence of what is trying to do. So it has something to do with freezing molecules, so you can study them with a microscope in a way. So this is why the cold and all these metaphors are coming in. So again, thinking about how you can kind of rephrase or reformulate the idea that you're working on in a different perspective. And the third aspect that really helps to understand people is giving them context. Kind of putting this idea in a bigger picture. And what does context mean? It's about kind of giving the background question of why this is important to think about. So all research questions do have this kind of problem definition somewhere. Sometimes it's a bit more academic, sometimes it's more practical, but it's there, and it's always worthwhile to emphasize why this is being studied at all, and what we hope this will improve. Context is also kind of showing the change. So what did we know before? What was it now? So quite often the science is like, okay, so far we used to think about this topic like this, but after this study we know it's a different way, or there are different nuances. So something has changed, and we can show this change. And also context is, what will happen in the future, or what impact could this thing have? So I don't know if you kind of look at this infant theater or improvised theater, what kind of potential does it have? So where can it be used in order to have practical benefits, or artistic benefits, etc. So also thinking about the future, which is, I know, something that researchers sometimes are not very kind of eager to do because this is speculation and they don't want to hype things too much. But this is something that I know that journalists tend to ask from researchers. So if you ever encounter a journalist, you should know that they don't have many and very specific questions. They have a standard set of questions that they ask everyone. What did he do? Why is this important? What will happen next? What can be done with this? Very standard. So if you prepare for these kinds of questions, you'll be totally fine. I even once listened to a BBC reporter saying that actually, kind of reporting, you need only 2 questions to get people talking. First, so what is actually going on here? And the second question, would you like to add something else? And for them, it was just enough to get everything that they need. But yeah, usually, I don't know if you have had any experience with journalists, but to have a journalist who has actually deeply prepared for something and is asking very specific questions, that's very rare. They do come with quite basic understanding, and for you, that's not the problem actually, that's the opportunity. Because you are then able to set the agenda or kind of focus on the things that you think are important. And if you are able to kind of figure out what would excite the journalist or what would kind of be the appealing idea for them, you can sell it to them quite easily. But that requires that you are kind of able to think a bit like a journalist. And this means able to think, what might the audience want to hear? What might be interesting and intriguing for them, and then you can kind of frame it in that perspective and then sell it. And this kind of context usually helps quite a lot there. And as I already mentioned, kind of the supporting scientific literacy of the audience, kind of giving them understanding of how science works and what is the process and methods and limitations of things is a crucial component in kind of building and developing this trust as well. So if possible, I do always recommend to talk about these things also as well. And in the end, it's about telling a story. And I guess you here know it already and very well. And stories are the most powerful way of communicating or conveying information and ideas to people. So if you're able to kind of put this idea in a story, as a story, then you are quite guaranteed to be a bit more successful. So the story might come from the context. It might come from the process of research. It can come from different things, but do look for a story because, again, people forget statistics, they get the facts mixed up, but they always remember a good story. People remember the emotion that they had when they kind of were in contact with a certain topic. So if they attend a kind of event with you, a year later they might not remember the details, what you were talking about, but they might remember that, oh, that was fun, that was good, I really enjoyed that. And maybe some of the core ideas will stick to them. Telling a story, and we probably have heard of prop, the prop structure of fairy tales. Well, basically all stories in the world have kind of a certain kind of structure that can be encountered in those old fairy tales as well. There's a hero with an obstacle, going on a journey, getting help from someone and getting a reward, whether it's a kingdom or whether it's a new drug or whether it's a new method of doing something. So even scientific articles are usually stories using elements of these. So it's all there, actually, in what you are doing. You just have to discover how it's there and try to frame it a bit better as a story. Also, some classics. Aristotle, always helpful. The rhetorics. What we can learn from Aristotle is that impactful communication is a good balance between ethos, pathos, and logos, which means the logic, the facts, the emotion, and the values or the ethical aspect of things. So if you balance these, for example, in an opinion article, this works always better than kind of purely fact-based communication. So if you throw in a personal story, if you throw in kind of these arguments why this is beneficial for the society or how it supports it or how kind of this aligns with the democratic values of what we are doing, etc., combining all of these things is helpful. Any comments?
Yeah, I would like to respond a little bit to that. You stressed a couple of times that it's a possibility to use artistic means for communicating your research, and here again, this possibility of engaging the storytelling. I think in our artistic context, there is a possibility, the chance of being mixed with post-truth. And that's the question of credibility, actually. Because there is a certain genre, theater, lecture performance. And so it very much depends on the context where you put this act of communication. Because if there is the lecture performance, there's always a chance that not everything is true, that you are playing with the audience, that you are provoking. So that's the aspect to think about. Because, for instance, there were performances by Latvian independent theater company, Dirty Deal Teatro, and they had a couple of shows based on scientific data. For instance, the character comes on stage who represents a researcher of some sea algae, something like that. Sea algae, and it's about our. Do you know the place about Arctic environment and all these ecological things? And she and he starts to deliver lecture. Which seems very, how to say, credible, but it is a performance. I mean, it's not a real scientific lecture. So yeah, so it's about our context.
Yes, because I think in the artistic world, all things are equal, right? All the kind of the. Everyone has an independent truth. So one thing is not more truthful than the other in the kind of artistic sense, and we see how the social and humanities sciences are also being attacked with the same kind of proposition that it kind of discredits kind of the objectivity, that there's kind of this objective truth out there, and kind of social sciences and humanities obscure it, and that give equal value to different perspectives that, from the objective natural sciences point of view, do not have equal value. I think the solution there, I do understand, because this is the tension point in artistic research, that you do have this research component in there, which implies a different set of thinking, different kind of thinking about your topic. And I think the core there is this transparency, that we actually are able to tell the audience what we are doing. I think what gives credibility to science is the understanding of the methods, that we know the methods that have been used, and we can replicate it, or at least we can understand the process in detail. And I think in artistic research, this is something that is added to the artistic work that you are doing, this kind of reflection, analytic reflection based on different theories and methods and concepts. And I think in those cases, sometimes it is necessary kind of to also approach science with artistic means in order to kind of create these discussions and open up and raise questions about exactly why do we think this was a credible lecture, even if it turns out that this was actually all invented. So what if it goes on from there to kind of discuss the elements of why did we think it was credible for us, I think then it serves the purpose, but then it needs to be kind of supported somehow with this component that brings this clarity to the discussion. So, but yeah, I understand that there's certain situations. I do stand that this kind of things are needed, but I do see the problems that can be raised with the help of that. So my argument again is that if we have a good level of scientific literacy in the society, then the audience can be critical and will recognize the situations, for example, where we see that this is kind of the artistic performance, not an actual science lecture. But yeah, then we always need to kind of together work to enhance this literacy. Yes, and now the practical part of what will be useful also when you start writing is then how will you structure the things that you prepare. And in the academic world, it tends to be, if you look at academic articles, they usually start with kind of the background of things, then they give the details like methods, and they come to the conclusions in the end. Whereas if you look at news articles, they tend to be kind of exactly the opposite way. They give the result or the main idea in the very beginning and then start expanding it bit by bit, giving kind of the important information or background and context, and then supporting details. So kind of this is again a way that academic and public writing differ, and where you need to adopt to a different way of thinking, of how kind of structuring your ideas. You cannot start by saying that this topic was already discussed in 1989 by the prominent professor, followed by this and that, and then in the end find out that, okay, based on that, I did this. But rather start with, I did this, and why did I do that, and what was the context, what was kind of the history and background, and etc. So you give that towards the end. And the way to kind of write that is kind of the traditional news way. It's called the pyramid style of news writing. You start with kind of trying to answer the main questions: who, what, when, where, and why. Sometimes also how. So you try to squeeze that all into one paragraph, and then move on to providing other types of information that is relevant to the topic. So if you follow the traditional news, how it's written, this is the standard that it follows. Of course, recently in journalism, there also been kind of this hybridization of styles, etc. So not all news stories follow that anymore. But as an exercise, I think it's a very good way how to start also structuring your own thinking. So this way really helps to you kind of define what is the focus of my message, what is the backbone, the idea that I want to present. There is a story connected with that pyramid. So where did it come from? So I don't know whether it's true or not, but I'm just telling you the story. So the story goes that this started during the American Civil War in the 19th century. So the telegraph was invented. There was a war going on. There were reporters sent out to the battlefields, and they had to kind of send back to their office the latest news of how the battles went. And well, since the telegraph lines were not that reliable these days, they could kind of drop off. Then the reporters had to find a way how to communicate the important information in the beginning before the line cracks. So they had to write, our groups won the battle and the other group lost. Because when they would have written that dark clouds were gathering among the hillside, when the battlefield, where the battle groups were gathering, and then line drops, no one knows who won. So important things in the beginning, and that the function of this first paragraph is both to give the important information and also to convince people why they should keep on reading this text. Because, I don't know, if you follow or try to analyze how you read online news or in social media, I bet that you usually, in many cases, just read the headline. If you open the article, you might read the first paragraph, sometimes first two paragraphs, maybe look at the image, and then quite quickly move on. And probably you don't read many articles to the end. And I do recommend next time you do that, try to think, why is that? Why are there some articles that you read longer, and why do you keep moving on from the other articles? Maybe you feel that, okay, the first paragraph gave me every information that I need. I don't want to read further. I just click the next one. Maybe you think that, oh, this article was so well written. I always wanted to know what happens next, so I kept on reading. So the trick or the mastery of writing is both to convey information and to keep the reader trapped, raising their curiosity or kind of appealing to some of the emotions or kind of implying the practical use of what you are doing. So kind of contextualizing the information at the same time. That's how journalists think and work with texts, and that might be useful for you as well. So this kind of the first paragraph is so important and has so many functions, giving information, trapping the reader, and also kind of giving the focus to the whole story. So what follows there must be somehow kind of logically derived from the first paragraph in a way, so that you're not kind of jumping around trying to tell everything in one article. You cannot do that. You have to kind of select one idea, one line, one argument, and then keep on focusing on this, and this should be evident from that first paragraph. And the question always there, why should the reader care about this topic? So you kind of have to explain it to them, or kind of focus on that in every sentence, in every paragraph, in every word.
Can I comment?
Yep.
Yeah, you said that you usually read the headline and then you maybe click on the article and then you sift through, but I have a problem with the headlines because they are so misleading, and if I open the article and it's not about that, I just close it, just out of principle, because it's like, you're lying to me. They're saying, oh, this happened, and then you read and it's something else entirely, and it's not that dramatic as they say it is, and then you're like, no, I'm not reading it. It's a lie. I don't want that. And that's why I agree that you should, if you like write an article, you should focus on something that you write, not just pick some words for the headline. Then you get the clicks, and it's done, and it's nothing. It's useless. Yeah, so that's my point.
Yep. You're not the only one. And it does undermine the trust for media, doesn't it? Yeah. And I think media is now kind of a bit moving back. And also COVID played a big role, because it kind of showed people how important media is in kind of this kind of crisis situation, and kind of made people subscribe to media, and then help the media back to not do just clickbait. Because why they were doing that? Because the business model moved very strongly from subscription-based to kind of web advertising-based, and in web advertising, what you sell to the advertisers are the clicks. So this is where the clickbait came from, and it is. I very much agree that this is a problem. But I see that some of them are moving back, and well, but unfortunately, people like you and me, in that sense, are still a minority. The practice continues because it seems to be working, and we still get tricked once in a while. So again, writing a good headline is quite a craft. in a way that it is intriguing, appealing, and also correct. You will also all get a chance to try that later. My experience is that in those workshops, in these discussions, we sit together, we criticize those practices, and then we go and start doing it themselves when we need to write. So we tend to, it's quite often it's the most easiest way, the easiest solution to do, and that justifies it for them. But yeah, I agree. It's a problem for journalism in general. Okay, a few examples of those lead paragraphs of news stories. I'm sorry, all natural sciences based. But again, very traditional one. Humans have been polluting the environment for at least 4,000 years. So say scientists who have analyzed sediment from the South China Sea. But not everyone is convinced. Very traditional in a way. It does give the essence of the result in the first sentence, a bit of background to the outcome. So that is a scientific research. It's been done by analyzing sediments in South China Sea, and then kind of throwing out this caveat or intriguing point as well, but not everyone is convinced. So you would want to read further. So, okay, there seems to be a conflict there or something not quite so. I would like to know what it is. So a bit of intrigue to keep people reading on. So that's the classical approach, and this is something that I would like you to practice later. But there are different ways as well. For example, look at this one. If your new boyfriend smokes, will he risk your relationship for the thrill of a one-night stand? What if your accountant likes to go base jumping at the weekend? Might she be more likely to take risks with your money than someone who relaxes by playing golf instead? Can you think what this story might be about? Would you like to read it further? So there is some intrigue, even if you don't have a personal accountant or you don't have a boyfriend that smokes. It's about the psychological research of whether different aspects of our personality are connected. So whether one type of risk behavior can lead to other type of behavior. So we see there are different approach, not giving much information about the research in the first paragraph, just posing questions, intriguing people to read further. But yeah, this it needs to be kind of well executed in the end to convince, so that we don't again make too many kind of promises with this kind of questions, so kind of intrigue too much people. Third option, I was curious. That's how James M. Duggan, an Oxford University medical student, explained why he agreed to swallow a big dose of live typhoid bacteria. Are you intrigued?
Yes.
So if you have kind of such a story to tell, you can see that it was kind of, it plays on the story, it plays on the intrigue, not just kind of the outcome. If it would have been written like that, in a way that swallowing bacteria does not affect your health if you do this or that, or it would have been okay, but it would have been boring. So a a bit of intrigue, a bit of storytelling there. This is how it works. But kind of these ways are kind of the next level skills of writing. So when we go to the practical exercise, I want you to kind of rather try to kind of summarizing the essence of the research as the first step of how to communicate. But if you feel certain, you can try the other one as well, but summarizing is perhaps something, the core skill of writing. And another aspect to kind of remember about journalism or communication, this is something called the news values. So there's been research on why do in newspapers, in news shows, why do we have those news and not others specifically? So that they've been trying to figure out what kind of characteristics does an event need to have in order to be news or kind of make the news. It used to be a bit more important when you had paper newspapers and just one news shows. Now in online you can fit as many news as you want, but you had to make tougher selections in a newspaper or in a news show, news broadcast, and they tried to figure out, what are the characteristics that appeal, that make something news. And there are several lists, but this is one of them. So first of all, if something is connected with powerful people, the government, the politicians, this is what makes news. Even if it's not connected to specifically what they do in the day, like legal laws or decisions or whatever like that. So for example, if our president is being admitted at the hospital, this will be news very much more likely than you or me will be admitted to a hospital. So powerful people or celebrities. So anything that celebrities do, you have noticed in media, will be made news. Even if they do trivial things, they are being reported. But kind of, again, this is an opportunity sometimes. If you are able to kind of link your argument with something that well-known people have done, this can be beneficial. For example, at some point, the breast cancer research benefited very much from Angelina Jolie. You knew that kind of, if you reported breast cancer research, you did mention that this is something that Angelina Jolie was suffering from, and then she had to have her breasts removed again. People know Angelina Jolie, they care for her, and this helps to kind of make this topic more relevant and close to them. Then there are kind of these emotional aspects. When you are able to entertain people or kind of surprise them or kind of give them even a sorrow feeling, different emotions help to kind of make topics more relevant for people and help to follow them. So bad news, for example, so the most read stories in online news portals are always related with accidents, deaths, these kind of things happening. This does appeal to people, kind of probably in some kind of evolutionary way. So again, it might be an opportunity for you to frame your topic in a way that kind of helps to reduce something bad or something else. So, but at the same time, good news also work. So promising people that something good will happen can be relevant. And then these aspects that kind of make some stories more valuable or more worthy. The magnitude means that the more people a story is impacting, the higher news value it has. So if you're linking your story with, I don't know, children, it impacts more people than you kind of select, I don't know, a smaller group, I don't know, prisoners or teachers or like that. So try to kind of find an angle where most people would feel that they are connected to that. Relevance means that there are some aspects to the story that people can really relate to, that is familiar to them in their everyday lives, for example. And the kind of in science, as I mentioned before, in the context part, this is one crucial way to look for how can I link this to the everyday lives of people. Is there a connection? How do I kind of bring it out, the impact for the people? And quite quickly, follow-up means if there's a topic prominent in media and your idea links to that, this also increases the chance of it being picked up because it is out there in the air. People want to know that. And newspaper agenda means that different channels have different priorities of topics, and you are more likely to see, for example, environmental stories in The Guardian than, for example, in The Times. So they sometimes select stories based on their kind of preferences. And these are kind of the aspects that a journalist keeps in mind when they write their stories, and the headlines and the lead paragraphs. And these are the ways that they try to sell the story to the audience, and these are also the ways that you can sell the story to the journalist. Or if you go directly to the audience, also, again, employ these aspects to sell it directly. So again, everything that I've discussed here is related to knowing who is your audience, what are they interested in, what is the language that they speak, and trying to adopt your idea to them. So I know in the artistic world, this is not a very popular thought of adjusting to the expectations of the audience. It's probably considered populist and cheap. But in a research world, I think this is a necessary step to actually gain the attention, and then you can start building on that a bit more. I have some materials for you. So in a recent project, something that we did is we developed suggestions or criteria what makes good science communication. A lot of the things that I discussed today are also written here. Something is a bit extra, but this might be useful for you, so I'm sending out so everyone can take one. So there we elaborate those criteria a bit more. And if you go to the project website, you can find additional material, for example, a checklist for communication, and other things on the website as well that helps you to kind of plan your communication next time. There are some links, so I will distribute the presentation later to Božena, and then perhaps she can send it out. You can keep it in the department. Maybe some other people would want to read them as well. And now we have a lunch break, and after that we will gather in a separate room to do the practical exercise. But I think we have a minute or two for questions and comments before that, if you have any. Well, we can also, okay?
No, I was just thinking this, what I asked before you said about the peer review, how it is the quality. Just as all artists, we feel that's what we lack, even though officially we have a critique of art, but practically we don't have this tool that is so strong in the science community to keep the quality and relevance. Somehow we have to think of a parallel tool to be more free also with the communication. Otherwise, this free communication is really dangerous for us.
Well, yeah, in science you have peer review to guarantee the quality and reliability of knowledge, whereas in arts, I think that the criteria of what makes good art are a bit different. So I don't think in arts many people would be happy to have a kind of formalized way of assessing things. And but in artistic research, the challenge and the intriguing part is how to combine the two ways of kind of quality assessment or approval that come both from the arts and from the research. And kind of the danger is that you don't have a home anywhere. Whereas the aim should be that you are able to bring those fields closer together and create new value as a result. And well, as I said, this is an additional challenge for the field, and I'm not envying you because it's probably a bit tougher than working in a very established field, but then again, it's also very exciting. Okay, thank you.